Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. Republicans are calling it a big Christmas present for America. It looks more like Congress is on track to pass the biggest tax reform in decades.
Well, the plan would be a big win for President Trump's agenda. Jenna Browder is in Washington to explain what it all means for you.
President Trump says Republicans are just days away from delivering a big, shiny Christmas gift to the American people.
This is going to be one of the great gifts to the middle-income people of this country that they've ever gotten for Christmas.
Late last week, Republicans sealed the biggest overhaul to the nation's tax code in 3 decades. They have a final bill, and now with 2 key holdouts on board, Senators Marco Rubio and Bob Corker. They say they have the votes.
I'm confident we'll pass this bill probably on Tuesday. We were determined to get this job done.
The plan slashes the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, a big win for business. For individuals, it lowers the top tax rate from 39% to 37%, good for the wealthy. And for the middle class, the plan doubles the standard deduction. But it caps combined state and local income and property tax deductions at $10,000. Democrats are united in their opposition.
This is a total betrayal of President Trump's economic populist message on the campaign trail. It's a huge giveaway to big corporations.
The package also gets rid of the Obamacare mandate, which forces Americans to buy health insurance. One measure taken out of the final version is a repeal of the Johnson Amendment, which forbids churches and nonprofits from supporting or opposing political candidates. One key GOP lawmaker will be absent for this week's vote. Senator John McCain, who's battling brain cancer, has gone home to Arizona where he continues his treatment.
He's going through a very tough time, there's no question about it. But he will come back if we need his vote.
The House is expected to vote Tuesday, and if everything goes as planned, the Senate could vote as soon as Wednesday. From there, the bill goes to the president's desk. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, with us from Washington is Steve Moore. He's an economic contributor to FreedomWorks and was an advisor to the Trump national campaign. Steve, it's good to see you again. It looks like this thing's going to go through. What do you think?
Well, Pat, you know, we've been talking about this on the show for the last couple of years, and I'm just tingling with excitement here. We're right down to the wire, and it looks like this is going to pass, and we're going to have a bill signing probably on Thursday or Friday. This will be a great Christmas gift to the American people. Anybody who pays, if you pay income taxes out there, you're going to get a tax cut. So this is a terrific accomplishment. There's so much in here we've got to talk about, Pat, because there's a lot of very positive things for the economy and the American people.
All right, give us 3 or 4 of the most positive things right off the top of your head.
All right. Well, first of all, it started as how do we make America more competitive in the world? How do we bring back jobs that have left for China or Russia or Germany or Mexico or Canada? This takes our business tax rates, Pat, from the highest in the world to now below the average. So I think we're going to see a lot of factories and a lot of jobs moving back to the United States as America is more competitive. And I think almost all economists agree that our sky-high tax rates were just a disincentive for businesses to locate here. Apple has said they're going to bring billions of dollars back to the United States. FedEx, one of our great companies, said is going to purchase more planes and more trucks. That's going to be such a stimulus to the economy. And then there are a couple of other things that I think are really important here that are not getting enough attention. You all just mentioned it in your little brief about the bill, which is the individual mandate tax penalty is repealed here. And Pat, that is a tax cut for low-income people. The average income of the person who is or family that is paying that tax under Obamacare is about $35,000, and it forces them to buy insurance that they can't afford and that they don't want. So that's a big victory. And then I would point to 1 or 2 other things. We double the exemption amount for the death tax. We didn't get rid of it, Pat, but we did make it less onerous to people, and fewer family businesses will now be affected by the death tax. So those are just some of the real accomplishments of this bill.
Well, now, there's some people complaining, well, we're actually going to pay more taxes. Who are they and where are they located?
Well, you're right. In fact, there are people, if you're a very wealthy person and you live in California or if you live in New York or New Jersey or Connecticut or my home state of Illinois, those high tax states, they may end up paying more tax under this bill, Pat, because they're losing their state and local tax deduction. Now, I think this is a very positive accomplishment in this bill. There is no fairness in people who live in Utah or people who live in New Hampshire or people who live in Texas or Florida, those low tax states. Why should they have to pay more federal taxes to subsidize New York and California and New Jersey and states like that? So this will restore fairness to the tax system. But yeah, there's some high income people in those states and places like New York City that are going to probably pay more tax now.
And how about this thing that the Democrats, there's not a Democrat going to vote for this bill in the Senate. I just can't believe it. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal about the fact that the Democrats were pro-tax cutting in the old days, and they led the way in tax reduction from President Kennedy on. What has happened to the Democratic Party?
Yeah, it's sad. It's a very sad situation. I'm old enough to remember when I worked with Ronald Reagan in 1986, Pat, we cut the highest income tax rate in this country to 28%. Now, compare that with this bill, which cuts the highest income tax rate to 37%. Back then, when Reagan cut the highest income tax rate to 28%, the bill in the Senate, you won't believe this, Pat, the bill in the Senate passed 97-3. Because there were so many Democrats, people like Bill Bradley and people like Sam Nunn and even Al Gore and even liberals like Ted Kennedy said it makes sense to get our taxes down to make America more competitive. Now there are no Democrats. We'll see, by the way. I think you might get one or two Democrats in the Senate that might vote for this bill. Manchin of West Virginia, perhaps Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota. Those are very red states, very pro-Trump states. Well, let's keep an eye on that, Pat, and see how they vote. But right now it looks like not a single Democrat will vote for a tax cut for American families and businesses. It's a shame.
I read that some of these provisions are going to actually sunset, and by 2026, I think some of them will go away. Now, are they going to have be fighting every year to have this thing all over again?
Well, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention something really important, if I may. I'll answer your question in a second. Yeah. But there's another gem in this bill that people aren't even paying attention to. You know, we've been fighting for 25 or 30 years as conservatives to allow drilling up in Alaska of our vast oil reserves. And for the first time in 35 years, we will now have drilling in ANWR up there where there's billions of barrels of oil. That's good for American economy. So that's another big plus in this bill. Now, your point about the about some of these tax cuts expiring, what happened was we had to put a $3 trillion tax bill into a $1.5 trillion box. And one of the ways we did that was by having some of these tax cuts expire in 2024 or 25. But I'm here to tell you, if this bill works as I think it will, and we get the kind of growth dynamic, and by the way, the American economy is already growing at 3.5%, Pat. Right now, it's growing at 3.5%, which is twice as fast as it was growing under Obama. And that we haven't had the tax cut yet. I'm here to tell you, I think we're going to get 4% growth next year in the economy. That's going to lead to a lot more jobs, higher salaries and wages for people, and it's going to lower the deficit because when you have more people working, guess what? They pay more taxes. So I think we'll be able to extend those taxes past 2024 and 2025. But for the next few years, Americans are going to feel this. One other quick thing, Pat, if I may. President Trump announced on Tuesday that they're going to change the withholding tables. The IRS is going to change those tables by February 1st. That means come February, Americans are going to see this tax cut right in their paycheck.
Well, the other thing that I like is that the corporate tax reduction is not going to wait a year. It's going to go into effect right away. Is that right? Yep.
That's right. So that was a big issue of contention. The Senate wanted to delay the tax cut for a year. And it was people like my good friend Arthur Laffer of the Laffer Curve fame who told the Republicans, look, don't delay this or you actually may hurt the economy by delaying the tax cut. This is one of the things that Ronald Reagan had done. He had delayed his tax cut, remember, Pat, in the early 80s. And so the first year of the Reagan administration, the economy didn't do very well. And it wasn't until the tax cuts really kicked in, then we saw that explosion of growth in 83 and 84 and 85, 86, 87. And Art Laffer said, don't make that mistake again. Put those tax cuts in right now, and that's what we've done.
Senator McCain is not going to be available to vote, at least apparently not. I think if Lyndon Johnson was in charge, you'd have him come in on a stretcher into the floor of the Senate, but he's going home to Arizona. That leaves a one-vote majority, margin. What do you think? Are there enough votes to put it through?
Well, first of all, our thoughts and prayers go out to John McCain. He's such a great, great American hero at a time we don't have enough heroes. And what he has done for our country in his service has been so awesome. So I just love that man, and I hope him the best. But he is very sick, and I don't think he's probably going to be able to make the vote, Pat, but we feel pretty secure that we have every other Republican in the Senate that will vote for this bill. And if need be, then, of course, Mike Pence, the vice president, would break the tie if it came to 50-50. But this is going to pass on Tuesday. We have the votes.
Well, it's going to be a major thing in the next election, don't you think? I think it would solidify the support for the president and guarantee the Republicans will have control of the Congress for the next term. Is that the way you read it?
I told Republicans, I said, there's no turning back. If you don't pass this tax cut, you're going to lose the House and Senate. Now, we're going to have a strong economy, I believe, as a result of this tax cut in 2018. And the best thing that Republicans can do to secure their majorities, and look, let's face it, it's going to be a tough fight in 2018. The liberals are very, jazzed up. They are motivated. But I think if we can get this economy growing like it will, then people are going to say, well, let's not change horses now. The economy is doing well. I'm feeling better about my life and my job. And if that happens, I think Republicans will be fine. Thank goodness they're going to pass this, because if they had gone through the whole year of 2017, Pat, without a single legislative accomplishment, then I think they would have been wiped out. Now I think they look like they're going to be in good shape.
Are they going to pivot now and go back to the Obamacare and see if they can't take that out?
Well, I forgot the other big thing is getting rid of this individual mandate penalty that we just talked about. This is a significant repeal of Obamacare, because what it does, Pat, is it allows people to opt out of Obamacare now and buy a plan that is more affordable to them. So this is a big victory for the movement to get, let's just make Obamacare voluntary. If you want it, you get to keep it. But if you want another plan, you should be able to have that option, and that's what this Republican bill does. But yes, Pat, I do think there are going to be some major changes coming to Obamacare as well next year, because let's face it, Obamacare is falling apart financially, and we've got to make some big changes to that quickly.
So now we're looking at the vote. It will be tomorrow, we think, in the House. Senate will be on Wednesday, and the president will sign it by the weekend. Is that the plan?
Thursday.
By
Thursday or Friday. I'm going to be there, Pat. I promise you I'm going to be there, because I worked my butt off for this for the last couple of years. I'm so excited. This is, as a conservative as you and I are, I think this is one of the greatest accomplishments for the conservative movement. I'd go back to the Reagan tax cuts of the early 1980s, and then maybe the welfare reforms we put in place in the mid-90s. I mean, this is a monumental achievement for our conservative movement to expand our economy, give economic opportunity to everybody in this country, which is what we believe in as conservatives, right, Pat?
Amen. Well, I'm thrilled, and I think the American people are going to be thrilled when they begin to see the impact of this thing. They've had so many negative articles in the Washington Post, New York Times, and the left. Why doesn't the left want to help the American people? What is it with them? I mean, before we get off what's wrong with those people?
I don't know. I'll just say this, that when people start seeing their paychecks in February and March and April of next year, and they start to see they're saving, $50 or $100 or $150, $200 a paycheck, they're going to say, wait a minute, the media was lying to me. The Democrats were lying to me. This is something that's actually helping me. Because a lot of people don't think they're going to get a tax cut in this bill. They're going to see that they are getting a tax cut when they see their paychecks next year.
Well, Steve, I guess we have to wear earmuffs to keep the champagne corks from exploding too loud. But by Thursday, the party will be on. So thank you, my friend. It's good to see you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
What a great Christmas gift to the American people. It's a tax cut.
It's one. Well, congratulations. Well, in other news, there's been a terrible attack on a church in Pakistan. John Jessup has more on that story.
Pat, Islamic terrorists attacked a church service in Pakistan Sunday, killing at least 9 people and injuring dozens of others. ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack in the city of Quetta when more than 400 people were attending services at the Bethel Memorial Methodist Church. Pakistani security forces killed 1 suicide bomber and injured another, but the wounded terrorist managed to get inside the church and set off a bomb. Police are searching for 2 more suspects, and Pat, security forces there around the country are on high alert.
I spent some time in Quetta, ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago. It's a lovely city, and it was at peace at the time. I was a guest of a pastor there, and there was religious tolerance. Quetta was a wonderful town. And the fact that ISIS comes in, how can anybody claim to be part of a religion of peace when they go into a church and blow it up? Innocent people worshiping God in a lovely church in a city called Quetta. It's on the edge of Afghanistan and in that part of Pakistan. But you say, what do they think they're doing? Who are they trying to impress? What are they trying to do? How could they say that's moving the cause of Islam forward? Ladies and gentlemen, it's not a religion of peace. It's a religion of war and bloodshed. And we've given out something that I think you ought to get a copy of if you haven't already gotten it, about Islam. Is it a religion of war or of peace? And what do they say? What does the Quran teach? But at the same time, this is naked aggression, naked slaughter of innocent people worshiping God on their holy day in a sanctuary dedicated to God. And you just ask yourself, what kind of a religion is it whose adherents would go and blow people up and kill them because they were worshiping God? John?
Pat, the United Nations Security Council is voting on a resolution trying to reverse President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. According to Reuters, the resolution does not name Trump or the United States specifically in the text, but it does state that any decisions to change the status of Jerusalem will be nullified. The resolution needs 9 votes to pass the Security Council, but Pat, as you know, the U.S. has veto power at the UN.
Well, we had it, and we didn't use it during the Obama administration when they passed that iniquitous resolution declaring that that whole area is occupied territory. But now, I think the thing Trump needs to do is to send a word to the United Nations. Look, fellas, you're riding on our money, our dime, and the dime is going to be withdrawn. You can forget all these generous bonuses you give yourselves each year. There's not going to be any more of it because the the United States just closed its checkbook. And I think it's time that we send those people. They're a bunch of deadheads in the United Nations. They don't do anything but criticize Israel and pass resolutions opposing the United States. And I think it's time we said, look, we're not funding this nonsense anymore. And I suggested, when I made a speech to the Council on National, CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, that we ought to have a Union of Democratic Nations, a whole new organization. The UN is broken as far as I'm concerned, and it's just a debating ground for anti-American, anti-Israel. And you look at the resolutions they've passed over the years, almost all of them concern an attack on Israel. And I think it's time that we just say, enough, enough. Why do we have to fund that nonsense? John?
Well, Pat, Christmas is just a week away, and if you're overwhelmed about what still needs to be done, or if you're feeling as if you don't know what to do or how to do it, you're not alone. And Pat has some advice for you. Pray for wisdom. Take a look.
One of the things that people talk about a lot is they pray for wisdom. How do I acquire that? What have you learned about wisdom?
I prayed for wisdom, and I prayed for favor, and I prayed for the anointing of the Holy Spirit. And they were my 3 lifetime, and they still are.
Yeah.
But I asked for wisdom, And it is amazing how God will open up wisdom to you. God is the source of wisdom. He knows everything. He knows the end from the beginning.
Yeah.
He knows everything. And if we just listen to him, he has a plan, and he has a plan, Scott, for every one of us. He has a plan for you, a plan for me, a plan for the people in this audience, everybody. And if we just will listen to him, he will say, this is the way, walk ye in it. I'm going to show you my pattern for you. I've got it all planned out before the foundation of the earth. Here's what you should do. Ooh. And if we follow that, hey, good things happen.
Answered Prayer, available January 15th.
Pat, I can't think of any better advice.
Well, I had a lot of fun with Scott, and I think the people who were listening really appreciated that. They say it may be the best one we've ever done. But what it'll be available for you on January the 15th. It'll be members of the 700 Club, and there's a telethon that starts January the 15th, and you can get your copy at that time if you don't already get it. But I think it's something you ought to look forward to, because it's how to have answered prayer.
Mm-hmm. Important. Everybody wants to know that.
Well, of course they do. That's what people, how do I get my prayers answered? Well, we'll do our best to tell you. All right.
Exactly.
January 15th. You look at it. It's called Answered Prayer. All right.